Joining us now is Dr. Sebastian Gorka, who recently left the White House as a counsel to the president. How are you, sir?
Very well, Sean. Great to be back on the show.
All right, let me start with what the president said there. And look, I was last night, all of a sudden, boom, everything's going nuts because Pelosi and Schumer put out these statements. And it turns out the president has a very different view of the meeting last night. But with that said, a lot of people are very concerned, as I am, that, if somehow they're able to convince this president to do a deal where he doesn't get the wall first, we're not getting the wall. It's just like you get tax increases, you never get spending reductions. You get, some type of acquiescing or deal or concession, and you never get the wall built ever, like Reagan in '86.
Look, Sean, I stand by exactly what I've said already publicly. Remember when a New York realtor, businessman, billionaire called Donald Trump started his campaign for presidency, his first policy platform, the foundation of it all, was immigration and the wall. He's already said he's not going to go back. He knows the cost he would pay if that platform of his whole presidential campaign was somehow undermined. What he's done in the last few days is send a very simple signal to the GOP. This is about, the master strategy. The GOP needs to understand that they didn't win the election last November. Donald J. Trump won the election, and he can deal with people who have the letter D behind their name, not just people who have the letter R behind their name. So this is, have faith, as I tweeted out today to the base. Take a deep breath, count to 10, and have faith.
Listen, I have faith in the president. So far, he's never really wavered on his promises at all. I went through the other night on TV. I don't know if you saw my ding, 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 ding show, but a lot of people seem to have caught it and all the promises that he's kept. But my question, when Chuck Schumer comes out with this, look, I have no doubt that the president is going to probably have to deal and do things he doesn't want to do because we know there are so many weak Republicans there. Even the House bill on health care was never what anybody wanted, but we discovered that there were 100 House Republicans that never had any intention of replacing Obamacare, just like we had 7 Senate Republicans that voted just to repeal in 2015. They had no intention of really doing it, and they only did it as show votes. So the circumstances are you just sit there and do nothing, or you have to negotiate. I get it.
There's been no significant issue which was up to the president that he hasn't followed through on, whether it's destroying the caliphate of ISIS in Mosul, whether it's revitalizing NATO, whether it's breaking the 29th stock market record, Sean. I can't even keep up with it. The million jobs he's created. When it's up to him, he always comes through. Now, on Obamacare, let's be very, very specific here. He said to the GOP, to his colleagues on the Hill, hey guys, you've been working on this for 7 years, saying repeal and replace. We have checks and balances. We have separation of powers. So you're going to fix this for America, right? And what did they do? They punted it. It's the same situation here. He doesn't want to fail with regards to immigration, and he's going to make a deal. At the end of the day, he will come through because he always comes through. Now, Chuck Schumer spinning, Nancy Pelosi lying, we're used to that, Sean. Everybody should be used to that. But that's not how Donald J. Trump behaves.
Listen, I agree with you, and that's the person that I've known, and that's the person that I've seen. But I do know how Washington works, and I do know that they're going to try and persuade him to make the concessions first, promising the wall, promising the funding, and then never do it. And I'm not saying, and that's why I think in terms of negotiation, look, I'm sure that this president in the course of his business career is probably shaking people's hands. All right, you got a deal. And those people follow through on their word. But I wouldn't count on any one of those people in D.C. to keep their word. None of them.
Look, you're absolutely right with regards to who these people are, but don't you think he's got an inkling of that by now? And again, to reassure the people who voted for the president and still want to believe in the MAGA agenda, just because people like myself or Steve left the building, does anybody really think that the president isn't in touch with the people who truly understand how the swamp operates?
I don't think he is. I mean, that's my take, but I do think that he's now entered a phase, and again, I go back to Republicans have literally pushed him into the arms of the Democrats because of their colossal failure. And so these are far more troubled waters that he's in now.
Look, they are. It is a swamp full of 20-foot alligators.
It's disgusting.
I mean, no, it is. It's Disgusting
it's despicable.
No, it is. But at the end of the day, what do you know about this man? I know one thing. From the first moment I met him in 2015, before anybody took him seriously, right up to working with him in the Oval, in the West Wing, this man never gives up. You can try and stab him in the back, but he will be there for the long fight, and he will put on the table that which he does. Look, he just doesn't give up. His track record, 50 years in the private sector, he never, ever gives up. He is translating that into a divisive, disgusting environment, but the man hasn't changed. It's just a different game now.
What do you do when the Republicans are so ineffective and they're so incapable of keeping their word?
You know what you do? You send very clear messages.
You go to dinner with Pelosi and Schumer?
You go to dinner, and then you get people like the congressman in Pennsylvania saying, well, maybe I'm not going to run again. Because some people realize what happened November the 8th. What we need is the rest of the swamp to understand. If they don't get on board with the anti-establishment candidate who just crushed 16 establishment candidates. Can we just think about that for a second? A man who's never held public office before wiped the floor with 16 GOP establishment candidates. That's what happened. They need to look themselves in the mirror and understand it's all changed. It's a new game. They can try the old tricks, but you know what's going to happen? In 2018, to those seats, they will lose them, and before that, they will be primaried.
You know what's frustrating is those people that say the president's not conservative. I don't care. You want to use nationalist, American first. I don't really care. But the tax plan he has is Reagan-esque. What he discussed for repealing and replacing was Reagan-esque. His views on energy are Reagan. His views on judges are Reagan. His views on the border are Reagan. His views on military strength, it's just so reminiscent of everything that Ronald Reagan stood for. And I'm arguing that I have not changed over the years. I am arguing that the Republican Party has become a party with no identity. The president has an identity, and he's fighting for issues. And all Republicans want to do is they're just so afraid of everything, and they're afraid of their own shadow. Does an 18% approval rating for Mitch McConnell wake him up?
Yeah, look, you're absolutely right on the quality, the substance of these platforms. But let's remember one more thing. He's had those views for decades. I mean, his views on China, on the military, on oil, on intellectual property theft, he didn't make those up in the last months of the campaign. He gave interviews on those issues.
Do you think he's a nationalist populist, or do you think he's a conservative, Dr. Gorka?
I reject all those labels. He's a patriot who loves his country, and he wants all of us to prosper. This is a big thing. Whether you voted for him or not, he wants you to prosper and be safe. Forget the labels. He's a pragmatist, and he's a patriot.
So why did you leave?
Why? Because I couldn't do what I needed to do for him inside the building, shackled as a government employee, and being boxed out of the policy process by people who had nothing to do with the agenda we came in with on January the 20th. And I'm going to help him from the outside because it's much easier right now.
What does the future hold for you then? What are you thinking about doing? I hope you come work for Fox News. I read that yesterday. I'm like, all right, maybe Dr. Gorka will work with me. We love having you on.
I'd love to. I'm going to have an announcement coming out on Tuesday with regards to some of the things we've been talking about when it comes to primaries and helping the president's agenda.
Right.
But fighting a good fight, and if it's at Fox, if it's on the stump out there, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing wherever we are. Look, it's not a function of where I'm sitting or where Steve's sitting. It's a function of can we get MAGA to happen. I
agree. Make America great again. And by the way, that's the forgotten men and women. And that's what this election was about. And that's what I tweeted out last night. That's what the president has to remember. All right, we got to break here. Listen, we love having you. Let us know if we can help in any way. And we hope you'll be on often. Dr. Sebastian Gorka on the Sean Hannity Show.